Alright, the last part of the video says solving systems using any method, you must show all your work. So once we get to this part right here, again, the key word here is going to be using any method, any way that you want to solve these. So really you know two different ways. You know y equals on your calculator, and then if you type them into y equals, then you would look at your table, x, y1, y2, and then you would just look at where they match. Or you can do substitution, which is what we've kind of been practicing. Substitution. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys two different problems, and then I'll let you guys kind of decide on how you want to work the rest of these kind of on your own. I'm going to plan on working 4 and then leaving kind of like 2 on your own. That way you guys can get a little bit more practice. So for example, for the first one, if we use substitution for the first one, the way that I've taught substitution is we draw that line down our equal sign. This kind of helps me split my equations in half. So if I look at this half right here, we have 3x plus y. If I look at the other half, we have negative 10. I'm always looking for the one that has the letter by itself. So in this case, we have 3x plus y. Those are together, so that's not by itself. In this case, we have y by itself, and then we have 2x by itself. Now the x has a 2, so technically it's not by itself, but the y is completely alone. Since the y is completely alone, I can go through and I can box that in. Alright, if I box that equation in, that means that I have to rewrite my other equation. So right underneath this, I'm just going to go and rewrite 3x plus y equal to negative 10. Alright, so there's my equation. Alright, from here, since I boxed in the y originally, I'm going to box in this y and only the y. You don't have to box in the plus, you don't have to box in anything else, just the y. Once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the 3x plus, and I'm going to write the equals negative 10. I'm going to leave a little bit of space because I'm about to replace my y with something. So this is going to be 3x plus, leave a little bit of space, and then I'm going to write equals negative 10. Alright, my y, I'm going to replace it with something that my y is equal to. So right now we're using this equation. Right, we just rewrote this one. So I would cover that up, and then your second equation actually tells you what you can exchange your y for. In this case, you can exchange your y for 2x. So in parentheses, I would put 2x. Anytime you plug something in, you have to put it in parentheses. Now, one common mistake here is the distribution. A lot of students will try to do the 3x to the 2x. Technically, the 3x comes down. The thing that we distribute is the thing right in front of the parentheses, which right now we cannot see. We have a plus, blank, and then the parentheses start. Technically, in between these two, we have a 1, and that's what we distribute. So this would be just 1 times 2x, which just gives me 2x. And of course, it's positive, so I can bring that down, and then this just comes down. Alright, from here, I always encourage you guys to label one side x, one side numbers, or one side whatever variable you're working with. In this case, the x's that I have are 3x and 2x. Since they're on the same side, I can put them together, so 3x plus 2x is going to give me 5x. So we have 5x is equal to negative 10. And then from here, we can get the x completely by itself, so we divide by 5, divide by 5. And I get that x is equal to negative 2. Now, of course, we're not done. That's only half of my solution. So I'm going to come over here. Usually I tell my students to draw it at the bottom corner, but we're just going to go and write it up at the top because of space issues. My x value is negative 2. Remember that your points are always x, y. So my x being negative 2, the negative 2 would go in that first slot. And now we just have to figure out what our y is. To figure out that last point, you go back, you look at the equation that had the box originally. So you look at your two original equations. Out of those two, you pick the one that had the box originally. You draw it off to the side. So we have y equals 2x. And then from here, it's all pretty much just calculator work. I can now replace one of those letters because I know what one of those letters is equal to. I know that x now is equal to negative 2. So whenever I go through and retype this, I'm just going to take that x out, replace it with a negative 2. So if I replace it, I have y equals 2, parentheses, anytime you plug something in, negative 2. And all I basically do is just type that part into my calculator. So that would be just 2 parentheses, negative 2. Once I type that in, I hit enter, and then I get my answer, whatever whatever my calculator spits out, that's what goes in that missing blank. So in this case, we have -4. Of course, if I was showing the step, this would be y equals, once I type that in, I got -4, which is where I get, again, my y value. Alright, that was one problem. I'll show you guys how to work number 12. For number 12, you can actually go through, and since both of these equations are in y equals, right, y equals x plus 6 and y equals 2x plus 5, we can actually go into our calculator and just type these in. So this one would be one where I don't have to do substitution. I could just do x plus 6 and 2x plus 5. Hit second graph, and then I just look at where they match, where y1, y2 match, which in this case is at 7. Remember, that doesn't mean that my point is 7, 7. That means that my point is 1, 7, x and y. So this one, and on the test, obviously, it's going to say something like show your work. If anything, I would just kind of draw the table. And then maybe just draw a few points. Something like 0, 6, 5, and then 1, 7, 7. And then maybe the point under it, 2, 8, 9. And you can do something like, there's where my solution was, something like that. Right, pretty easy. We're going to go ahead and work. Let's kind of jump around. Let's go to number 11. Of course, this one's kind of set up for substitution, but you can also just decide, I want to use my calculator for all of this. So this one's already good to go, typing into your calculator. Right, and one of the things, and I'll kind of be the bad guy today or tomorrow, depending on when you're watching this. I'll be the bad guy in my class because I'm going to show my students that they could have done it the easy way out the whole time. So we have 3x minus 6, that one's ready to go. The second equation, I have to solve it for y first, but once I solve it for y, then I can type it in. So, if you choose to do the calculator, you would just basically take this, you would do 3y minus 2x equals 17. And you would basically just, again, your objective is to get the y by itself so you can get y equals. Right, so we box in the y, we move the x to the other side, or what I always tell my students is cover that up. How do you move a -2, which would be positive 2x? That goes away, this comes down. Never combine x's and numbers, just bring them both down. And then last step is to divide by 3. So this would be y equals 2/3 x plus 17 over 3, which isn't a very nice number, but let's see what it gives us. Always make sure to use alpha y equals, so 2 over 3x plus alpha y equals 17 over 3. And hopefully it shows up on my table. It does in fact show up at 9, 9. At 9, 9, so my solution to this is going to be 5, 9. Again, always xy. So if you guys think that solving for y is easier and then just typing it into your calculator, you guys can always do that. Again, I still encourage you guys on the test to at least write the point. At least show us the point where you found the solution and how your solution came to be. I guess we can work. I guess I can work 13 for you guys, just because some of my students, for whatever reason, struggle whenever it comes to getting the x by itself, or whenever you have x by itself. So this one, when we draw the line down the equal sign, I'll show this one with substitution. If we box this in, then we're solving for this, or sorry, x is equal to this, so that means that we rewrite the second equation, which would be y minus 2x equal to -11. I box in my x because that's the one that I originally boxed in. I know that we're used to boxing in the y, but in this case x is what I boxed in, so I boxed it in again. We then rewrite, so then we have y minus 2, leave some space for what you're going to plug in for x, and then equals -11. Alright, my x is going to go away. Whenever it goes away, I'm going to plug something else in place of it. The thing that I'm going to plug in place of it is we have the statement x is equal to 2y plus 8, negative 2y plus 8, so that's what I'm going to plug in place of that. So we have negative 2y plus 8. Alright, and then from here we would solve. I apologize that you guys can't really see this too clearly. My y comes down. The thing that I distribute, and the thing that students often struggle with is that, make sure that you distribute a negative 2. So we have negative 2 times negative 2y, which of course on your calculator you would just do negative 2 times negative 2. You get positive 4, and then you just have to remember that that one has the y, so plus 4y. And then positive 8, negative 2 times positive 8 gives me negative 16. Or I guess I can show it on the calculator. Negative 16. Equal to negative 11. Again, I always encourage you guys, keep the letters on one side, move the numbers to the other side. So in this case, we're trying to keep the y's in here and move the numbers to this side. So y's can stay on the left side, so that can stay and that can stay. This needs to go away, so we do plus 16. That's going to go away. Negative 11 plus 16 is going to give me 5. I'm going to go in and kind of cheat a little bit just because I'm running out of space. So we have equals 5. Keep my line down, my equal sign. On this side, since we have y and 4y together, I can actually add them together, which of course to help you add, I would encourage you guys to put a 1 in front of that y. So really that's just 1 plus 4, or in this case, 5y. So we have 5y equals 5, and then the last step is to divide by 5. So we get that y is equal to 1. Of course, we're not done. And of course, I can already kind of see some of my students saying, oh my gosh, we've been doing it the long way this whole time. So we get 1 by itself, or we get 1 in our y value. Make sure that you put it in the right spot. Y is equal to 1, so y goes in that second spot. Then we're trying to find x. Of course, with x, we just rewrite the equation that we boxed in originally, which would be, I'm kind of running out of space, x equal to negative 2y plus 8. I now know that y is equal to 1, so that's going to go in for y. So that's going to be x equal to negative 2 times 1 plus 8. And of course, this is what I type into my calculator, and that gives me my solution. So this is just going to be negative 2 parentheses 1 plus 8. Hit enter, and I get 6. So my x value is 6. So my solution to this would be 0.61. Really quickly, I think we'll try to kind of finish this. 15 says, determine which method would be most efficient to solve each system below and explain why you chose that method. So this is just which method is better or which method is easier to set up for. Of course, there's technically no right or wrong answer, because if you can manipulate your equations enough or well enough, then really you can choose any way to solve. With this one, since I can kind of split this in half, and I see that the y is by itself, I would say substitution. And then of course you would explain that the y is by itself, so it's set up for substitution. This one we have y equals and y equals, so that's set up for a calculator. And again, you can just explain, hey, I can just go into my y equals, type in both equations, go to my table, look at the points. And then finally, 16 says, John is using substitution method to solve the following system of equations. Find the error he made, correct it, and finish solving the problem. There's his problem, there's his work. We just kind of have to go through and solve, or figure out where his mistake is. So again, we draw the lines. We identify that y is by itself, which means that he rewrites it, which if we're just going to kind of do our work over here. If he rewrites it, he would have 6x minus 6y equal to negative 24. And already it looks like his mistake is that he boxes in the y but replaces the x. So he just replaced the wrong thing. So this would just be, instead it would be 6x minus 6, and then in place of my y, which is what we boxed in place of that y, we would have negative 2x minus 11 equals negative 24. And then from there we would solve. The 6x comes down. We distribute a negative 6. Make sure you guys are distributing the correct thing. Negative 6 times negative 2 gives me positive 12x. and then negative 6 times negative 11 gives me positive 66. From here, I can get my x's together. 6x plus 12x is going to give me 18x. And then that, I can subtract 66, right, because my numbers need to go to the other side. So subtract 66. You got to be careful with this. I always encourage you guys to add your things together. So in this case, we would have negative 24 plus negative 66. And my calculator tells me negative 90. If you always add these things together, you'll never make a mistake. So negative 90 is equal to 18x. And then, of course, to finish off my solving, I divide everything by 18, which would be negative 90 divided by 18, which gives me negative 5. So we have that x is equal to negative 5, which, of course, is part of my solution. And then my last value, I just go back to my original. Oops, minus 11. I replace the x with a negative 5. So this would be y equals negative 2, parentheses, negative 5, minus 11. Negative 2 times negative 5. Well, actually, let's just do this all on our calculator. Again, you don't type in the y equals. And this is just going to be negative 2, parentheses, negative 5, minus 11. Hit enter, we get negative 1. So my y value is equal to negative 1. There's my solution. Negative 5, negative 1. Of course, we showed all our work. We showed the other work over here. Other than that, that's going to be the test. Again, I encourage you guys, if you haven't already, if you didn't watch the first video, I encourage you guys to skip the graphing stuff during your test. Jump to the solving, jump to the other stuff, jump to the tables, jump to the equations, and then come back and do the graphing, just because the graphing takes so long. Alright, if you guys have any other questions, of course you guys can ask me during class, or ask your respective teacher during class. Alright guys, good luck on your test.